Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Genesys Cloud Community's Q&A show, the show where we answer your pressing questions in the Genesys online community. My name is Matt Lawson. I am your online community manager, and today, oh yeah, we're actually answering your questions. A little while ago, we put up a challenge in the GCAP community portal to get an idea of what people would like to hear about on this show. And one of the first topics that came in was simply the word metrics. That was as open-ended as it could possibly get. So I posted in the community asking for your help to define exactly what you would like to know about the topic. I was not disappointed. Thanks to everybody who sent their questions in. I don't want to waste any more time getting into answering them. We have a new guest joining us. Her name is Macy. And you know what I always say, why wait? Let's get started. Hey, Maisie, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, doing well. So, I understand you've done a DevCast before, but this is your first time stopping by the Q&A show. So, a long time coming before I get to meet the legend, but so glad to have you here.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Cool. If people haven't seen you on the DevCast, which I understand you did back in March, do you mind real quick just going ahead and introducing yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Maisie. I'm the development group manager for Analytics UI and reporting on Genesys Cloud. So basically what that means is all of your performance views, all your reports, your exports, I lead the teams that build those and occasionally get to build some myself still. I've been doing that here for more than 6 years, actually. It used to just be me. Funny enough, years ago, I was doing all of it. And now to keep up with all the demand of new features, we've grown to a really large group. So it's been exciting.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And I understand we were talking a little bit before we started recording. Your team put out something like 50 features this year. Is that correct?
Yeah, analytics is at 55 features in GA and 5 in beta right now. So
wow,
it's exciting.
That's really awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I kind of talked about this a little bit in the intro, but thank you so much for stopping by. A long time ago, I posted in GCAP that, for people to give us an idea of what they'd like to see on the show. Metrics came up. It was literally that, I think, just one word, metrics. And when I ran this by you, you kind of had some ideas of what you wanted to talk about. And I think we're in for a real treat because I just discovered today you want to go through some of the big features that came out this year that some people may not be aware of. And then you also want to talk about at least one feature, maybe two, that's currently in beta or about to be released. Where are we at with those?
Some are in beta and some are still in the late stages of development.
Cool. But maybe we'll get a sneak peek of those. You know what? It sounds like we've got a lot of stuff to cover. As much as I'd love to get to know you, I think we'll get to know you through a lot of what you talk about today. So what do you think? Should we just hop in and start discussing some of the features that are coming out?
Let's do it. So I want to drill down into the performance menu, which for those who haven't seen it lately, it's grown like crazy. So last year there were only a few entries in here, and now we've got all different aspects of performance views. So we've built a few different ones lately. So we've done more around flows because we know that's a really critical part of your solutions. So not only can you see statistics about how your flows are doing and your different versions of your flows, but you can actually track a little bit of the flow progress. So you can see how things are coming in, what they're doing, how they're disconnecting, and you can just keep drilling in and getting more insights about how your flows are performing and how they're being used. So this is one of the things that I think is super cool that we have delivered recently.
Very awesome.
Another set of things we have done is just a ton of columns and features, which if you look in our column pickers and our filter bars, the list is crazy. We have a joke that the columns must flow because they don't stop. We just keep adding them every time we get asks that we're like, oh, that's a really good idea. Let's add that. So we've added in a lot more insights into things like short abandon reporting. We've got some upcoming work that is in the late stages of development that will get you a little bit more information about your errors, your co-browse data, your voicemail data, so you can see how those are actually happening throughout your queues too. And then with that, we've got a lot of new filters as well. The most exciting ones being routing used, which has been released, and this lets you get an idea of what kind of routing is being done in each queue. So you can compare things. You can see, how is predictive routing being used versus standard routing in a queue, which provides a lot of insights. So you can see if it's being beneficial to use a more advanced type of routing. So you can apply any of these filters and drill it down, and then routing requested is in its late stages of development as well. So that's one we want to get out at some point next year to kind of provide some insights there. So that's what I'm really excited about.
Cool. So just to clarify, not everything that people see on the interactions on the right is available, but would you say most of it is?
Most of it is, yes. I believe we have two filters in here that have not been released yet. So routing requested and agent assist. So lots of good stuff in the works to help you get more insights about your queue data.
Awesome. Very cool.
One other thing I want to showcase that I think a lot of people don't know about that we have in a lot of our summary performance views is this view as group option, which I think is really cool. You get to pick a subset of queues that you care about, and then you can look at your details at that level. So you can see how did my set of queues perform together, and you can also even export those together. And this might look a little bit different because of something that's going into beta next week, and that's our export enhancements, where we let you have a little bit more details. So you can do an export of this data and see as an aggregate how your queues did together, but also a breakdown of your individual queues, so you can get an idea of how they compare, especially when you only care about a subset of queues or users or anything like that. It's super helpful.
Cool. Very nice.
And then another thing with the filters that we had added this year, this has been released, is the ability to quickly select which queues you care about, because, and I apologize, these names are ridiculous, but it can be really cumbersome to search for, 50, 100 queues, whatever you want. So we let you just pick the queues you want, and you can add them to your filters right there. And then once you have that, you can actually even save your views, or you can name it, and it basically creates a bookmark so that anytime I want to get to this exact set of queues, I can have a quick link there, which makes it really, really easy to switch around with different sets of filters.
That's really cool. So just to clarify, this functionality is currently available? Or
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Yep. So it's been around for a while. It's one that I think is a kind of a hidden gem. I think a lot of people don't notice the little save icon. So I wanted to showcase that because it's incredibly powerful. I finally deleted all my bookmarks, but I had about 200 for a while because I had so many different types of things I always like to look at.
Cool. I'm glad you pointed out that was a save icon. I honestly am not sure if I would have guessed that off the top of my head.
You don't remember the floppy disk?
I did have a copy of Doom on floppy disk. I'm not afraid to admit it. But it looked, and I'm a little further away from my monitor, which isn't big, but it looked like a house with a light on from here.
Yeah, I could see that. Okay, and then another thing with the queues, the last thing I want to showcase is another feature that's been out for a long time that we found that almost no one has discovered, and that's what we call the abandoned insights feature. And so if you go into a queue detail view and you have abandoned data, you can actually drill in and you can see the breakdown of when your interaction is abandoned. So you can see how many people are short abandoning, but how many people are also waiting in queue more than 2 minutes or something like that. And that's why they're abandoning, because you're leaving them in queue too long. So this has been out for a couple years, and you can actually configure your thresholds in the contact center analytics admin section, where you can just say what levels you care about pretty much, so that you can make these columns more dynamic.
Well, and what about those intervals? Can those be changed also?
Yeah, that's. I'll go ahead and just show it real quick. That's what I was referring to. So we want to make analytics as configurable as possible because we know every org is different. So you can change these values around, and these will, when you update these and you go back to the abandoned insights view, these will be your new intervals. So you can change them. You can change what your max is. This first one represents your short abandon. So some people like for it to be really brief. Other people consider, 15 seconds, something like that, still kind of a short abandon. So it lets you configure that. And while we're in here, these are all also features that are already out. We let you configure your calculation options for a few different metrics. So for flows, what you consider a short disconnect time. I believe the default here is 0 because most people really don't want to have short disconnects, but some people do. So it lets you configure that. And then we have the most configuration options around our service level metrics because everyone calculates this KPI slightly differently. So this allows you to include or exclude flowouts. So interactions waiting in the queue and then flowing out and maybe coming back in or something like that. Short abandons, if someone calls in and as soon as they find out they're in a queue, they hang up, you might not want that to impact your service levels. And then abandons is one that we more recently got asked for, where some people didn't even want to count abandons in their service level calculation. So we provided that customization as well.
Cool, very nice.
And then one of the other areas I wanted to kind of showcase was on the agents view. And this is another already released feature that a lot of people I don't think don't really know about because we kind of hide it here. And that's where you can filter your users. So everyone knows that you can type in a user and you can search for them. But what a lot of people don't know is that you can actually pick groups in here. So I can say, I want to look at Maisie's group, and this will go to my Collaborate group that I've already got set up that I might be chatting in. I can see these people right here. So it lets you filter it down to a group of people you care about. You can also do something like filter for everyone who has a given role. So show me all of the agents. You can do location here. And you can also do reports too. So I can search for myself and it will show anyone who reports to me, which is really helpful when you're looking at a manager's perspective.
Cool, that's awesome. And
then one item that actually got released yesterday that I wanted to talk about in this view is our adherence data. So we get a lot of asks for adherence data in our views because most of our views are really analytics heavy, but that adherence data definitely is part of your performance. So I'm going to go back to my group. And I don't have any exciting adherence statuses, but whatever my adherence value is will be in here. It'll update in real time, and I can see how long each person has been in this adherence status. And these also went into our dashboards yesterday as well.
Cool. That's really cool. And so if people wanted to learn more about this view, they could check out the weekly Pure Cloud release notes, I guess.
Yep. It should have been in the release notes, and we've got really thorough docs in the resource center as well on this one.
Cool. Awesome.
And then another one it seems kind of small, but it's a lifesaver for people who have had a lot of filters or they've drastically changed their views. In all of your views, you can now reset it to the default settings, which I know personally is really helpful for me when I go into a view that has 60 different column options and I pick some random ones or I pick too many of them and I can't see what they are anymore. So that's also another release feature that kind of helps you clear out things and get a clean slate again, which I think is really neat.
Man, that's really neat. That is really neat. Yeah, I agree with you. Sometimes it's nice just to be able to reset the playing field and go back to what you're familiar with. Very cool.
Yep. And then a lot of our other focus this year has been around dashboards. And it's kind of hard to remember when all we release things, but we've released multiple updates to our dashboard features. And so for those who haven't seen, we have these configurable wallboards that you can make public. You can make them shareable so that people can see them after you've created them. You can favorite them, things like that. And so we've added a lot of new metrics into here, a lot of queue metrics, agent metrics, like I mentioned, adherence data. So you can see when your agents are going out of adherence and things like that. And then we also have our agent status widget. So you can see a set of agents you can get high level counts of where everyone is in there. Obviously the charting as well. And then one feature that actually just went out to beta, I don't have a good example of it, but it went to beta on Monday, and that is the ability to embed web content into your dashboards. And it's really simple. All you do is you enter a URL, save it, and it'll appear in your dashboard. So it allows you to put some of your own company content within your wallboard.
Oh, that's really awesome.
Yep. And like I said, that went to beta this week.
Cool. Are you still looking for beta testers, or is that one pretty much full?
We've got a handful of beta testers already, but if there's anyone who's really itching for it, I'd be open to it for sure. We love feedback, so it'd be great.
Cool. Awesome. So yeah, if you're interested in a beta test, just leave a comment on the community or get in touch with me and I'll put you in touch with Macy. We'll figure it out.
And then the final thing I wanted to talk about is our exports. So for those of you who use this view a lot, you'll know that we put a lot of work into making our exports more dynamic. Our goal is to provide, we call them dynamic views. We want you to be able to see anything you want, filter it how you want, and then get a report for it. And so that's where we've actually made probably the most advancements in my group this year. This year we've added support for exporting selected columns. So you used to just by default get every single column, and you probably didn't care about most of them. Now you can pick your columns, reorder them, everything like that. So that one is already out. We also released the ability to have an export email to someone. So when you generate an export, it normally goes to your inbox, but you can actually also have it send to up to 10 different people so that you can distribute your reports a little bit quicker. So like I said, that one is already out. It does require a new feature, which is documented in the Resource Center. But it's a really exciting new feature for us because we've been getting asked for it for years. So I was excited to deliver it.
Oh, that's really cool. And I heard a quote the other day. It was like, the only bad data is data that you can't share. So
yeah,
it's great for making that easier.
Exactly. And then I had mentioned our feature going to beta next week. And this one has a lot of different options. So formatting durations, this first checkbox, it's actually already been there for a while. So customers do already have access to this, and that lets them decide if they want their exports in milliseconds or if they want to format it into hours, minutes, and seconds. And we also earlier this year added time zone selection so that you can run a report in a different time zone if you have people in different time zones. It makes the data a little bit easier to consume. We added CSV delimiter selection, which is not something that a lot of people care about, but there are countries where it's actually common to have a CSV have a semicolon delimiter. So we wanted to go ahead and give that option too. We also added split by media type, which basically will take your report that would have normally had data for just one media type, and you can see it broken down for every media type, which means you only have to run one report instead of 5, which is really handy. Another ask we had gotten a lot was we've got these summary rows in these views that we have, but we never put it in reports. So we wanted to give them a way to see their summary row in any of the reports that they're doing. And then also the ability to exclude empty rows. So right now, if I exported this view, it would have over 1,000 agents in my report, and maybe 100 of them have data. So I could exclude empty rows, and I'm only going to get data that matters. I'm not going to get a bunch of blank space. So it's really helpful in the case of summary rows, and then also on our interval views. If your center is only open from 8 to 5 or something like that, and you never have data overnight, you don't really need to have those rows clogging up your report. So that's another way to kind of give you a more custom solution. And then this last thing down here is actually PDF support, which I'm really excited about because it takes your ugly CSV and it makes it a pretty report. And I just had done an example of that earlier. So I took the data for the view I was on with the filters, and I got exactly what I was seeing in the view. And so you can see this looks like a traditional report, whereas a year ago it was just a CSV file of data. So it makes it a lot more consumable, and especially if you want to send it out via email, this is an awesome way to do it.
Very nice. Yes, indeed. That is a sharp report right there. Quite sharp.
And then the last thing I want to showcase that is still in development, not quite in beta, is is the ability to schedule exports. So I should have looked before that I have too many schedules, but this is one that we get asked for a lot because people have found that even though we've got our built-in scheduled reports, these exports are where you can get so much customization. So people want to be able to schedule those to run. So you can schedule your monthly reports to run and to email to the right parties. And you can have your scheduled reports straight from these views. So that's another one that is going to be a huge feature for us.
Awesome. Well, I mean, all of these features were really fun to go through. Macy, thanks for running through what you all have been working on this year. It's really cool to see end of year perspectives like that. Is there any chance you can hang around just a little bit longer and answer some questions that came in from the community?
Sure thing.
All right, perfect. Well, let's go ahead and hop in. So if it's all right with you, I'd like to start with the questions that came in from Samuel. Samuel wanted to ask, he asked 3 questions, and you've agreed that you can, or you're going to help us answer them all. But the first question that he asked is, what calculations are used to get the monthly SLA percentage?
Yep. So the concept of getting your monthly or aggregate data over a period of time is one that comes up a lot for us. And so it's not exactly what you would think. Most people think that your aggregates over a month might be the average of all your day's data. But actually what we do is we want to give you a full picture, which means we need to take the numerator over the denominator for the entire period. And what that means for an SLA is it means for the entire month, we need to get the total number of times we met SLA, and then we divide that by the total number of times we met and missed our SLA. And that gives you the monthly SLA. You would do something similar if you did it across queues, or if you did any of your average metrics like ASA, average speed of answer, anything like that. You'll want to take it across the entire month.
Cool, because his next question I think was around what about your daily SLA, and so I guess the answer is the same. It's just perfect. Okay, great. The next question from Samuel was, is there any way to calculate the average response time of an email?
So this one is a little bit tricky. There's not an aggregate metric or anything like this. There is a way you can do this on a case-by-case basis, and for that, you can look at an email response in the conversation detail record. And if you want, I could do a Postman demo of that real quick. That might help.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So I'm going to pull that up.
Go for it.
So I'm in Postman, which is what I use to make API calls, but you can do this in the API Explorer as well. And it works best when you're taking a small set of emails. Like I said, you can't really get this at an aggregate level to know how your average response time or anything like that looks, but you can hit our conversation details query endpoint, and you apply filters specifically for the email media type because you're wanting your email response time. The disconnect type is system, and the segment type is transmitting. And that basically means let me know when the system is transmitting my email back to the customer. So when you execute this, you're going to get a conversation detail record, which is the basically ledger style events. It's everything that happens in a conversation. And you can look in there for your transmitting segment, and you just grab your end time. So if you compare that to your conversation start or when your agent first picked it up, depending on what you care about for your agent response, then you can calculate that. So this would be something you would want to do with a smaller set of emails, probably no more than 100 or so, because you'd have to be parsing through all of these, but it is doable. It's just a little bit more work.
All right, awesome. Thank you for that really quick demo. I think this is the last question that came in from Samuel. And he wanted to know, what are reasons to use or to not use flowouts in an SLA calculation?
Yeah, so this one is, it's so dependent on what your org cares about. We find most people like to keep their flowouts in because the biggest risk we see with excluding your flowouts is that you can basically game your SLA calculation even unintentionally. If you exclude flowouts, you can have an interaction flow out and then it goes back in, and your SLA calculation starts over basically. So it can alter what your true SLA is when it comes to the customer's perspective. So that's the main reason we see not to do it. The main reason we see orgs doing it is just because they have a scenario where flowouts make sense as something they don't need to get to immediately. And so it really is not indicative of how they are doing to the customer.
Hi, Matt. Questions around metrics. Tutorial on the skill performance to help measure SLA, ASA per queue for specific skills, i.e. in the service queue, the ASA for interactions with the skill, quote, blue, end quote, compared to the ASA for interactions with the skill, quote, red, end quote. Is there a way to get I guess, do you want to tackle that first and then I can ask this next question? Is that what makes most sense, Maisie?
Yep, let's do that.
Okay, perfect. Let me stop my share.
Okay, so to get the data on how different queues are handling skills and languages, we kind of lump those together a little bit when we talk about skills performance. You will use the conversation aggregates query. And so I've got an example of what that looks like. And we have a few things here. So flat and multi-valued dimensions just basically means I don't want to double count something that has two skills. I don't want it to be, if there was an interaction that had two skills, I don't want it to be counted as each skill separately. I want to consider that bundle of skills. So that's what that gives me. And then I'm going to group by my routing skill, language, and QID dimensions. If you don't use languages, you can just use skill or vice versa. But in the case of my org, we do both. And then you send in your metrics that you want. So I just picked a subset of them. And then the question kind of asked about getting it for a specific skill. I used a language just because that's the data I had, but I just applied a filter for that language ID. And so I can execute that and kind of show you what that looks like. So when you get the data back, you get your grouping, which basically shows you what scenario happened. So I had this queue, language, skill, and media type combination. And right there, I can get all of my stats for the interval. So I can see for these this language and skill and queue together, there were 2 offered interactions. But for having an additional skill on there, I had 1 offered interaction. And so you can look, in the case of ASA, you would look for your T-answered stat, but then you can compare each of the different QIDs that appear in your results there.
All right, awesome. Thanks for that quick demo. We really appreciate it. And then Jean, I think, had 2 questions left. The first is there a way to get a list and a count of agents who are on queue but inactive in all of their queues, real-time or historical information? What do you think?
So that one's a little bit trickier for a couple of reasons. One is that we really don't track your status, your routing status or presence, or your queue activity state. So if you're inactive or active on a queue historically. So there's not an easy way to get that. If you wanted to get an idea of what agents were on queue but not joined or inactive to the queue, then you would want to query each of those queues members individually, and then you would have to send each of those to analytics. It would be a lot of merging data sets. So it is possible, but it would be cumbersome and a little less doable for a larger org.
Cool. And I think just one last question here from Jean. Can you measure preferred agents' routing performance?
Yeah, so you can, as I showed in the views, the queue performance views that we had, the routing used filter, we have that in our other views as well. And you can select different routing types. So standard is a common one, and then predictive is one that has come up. and preferred. Sorry, I guess it was preferred that you had asked for. You can just pick that. And if you want to do the query directly, you can send the routing type to the analytics endpoint, the same endpoint that we use for the skills aggregates. But the view will do that for you, so you can see an agent's status for different routing statuses, see how they are performing for different routing types.
Awesome. Macy, I think that was it for the questions that we had today. A lot of the other questions that came in, we were able to answer either in the community or through email because they were relatively a little easier. But you have been a terrific guest. Is there any chance maybe we can have you on the show sometime in 2021 to go over all of the great new features that have come out?
I don't see why not. Let's do it.
Awesome. You've been a great guest. Thank you so much for stopping by. Good luck with the holidays that are coming up, the end of year celebrations. I know 2020 was a busy year for you. You got a lot done, and it's really exciting that you had time to come share with us. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thanks.
All right. Have a good one.
Thanks for tuning in for this week's episode. We hope it was helpful and maybe a little bit entertaining. Each week, our host and experts review community discussions and debate what content to discuss, so your voice matters. Did we miss something? Do you have a question for the show? Let us know. Join the conversation at the Genesys online community. As a Genesys customer or partner, you can create an account. Just click the sign-in button found on most pages and follow the necessary instructions to create an account. Also, feel free to email us at qashow@genesys.com. We'd love to hear from you. If this is your first episode, welcome. You can view our entire archives. Go to the Helpful Links panel found on most community pages and find the QA Show archive that interests you. We appreciate your support of the show and the community. Cheers!